Welcome to the SEI Podcast Series, a production of the Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineering Institute. The SEI is a federally funded research and development center sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense. A transcript of today's podcast is posted on the SEI website at sei.cmu.edu/podcasts.
Welcome to the SEI Podcast Series. My name is Suzanne Miller. I'm a principal researcher in the SEI Software Solutions Division. Today, I am joined by my friends and colleagues, Tim Chick and Joseph Yankel. Tim is the Security Automation System Team's technical manager in the SEI CERT division. And Joe is the team lead of the DevSecOps Innovations team in the Software Solutions division. Today, we're here to talk about their work on a platform-independent model for DevSecOps. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So you've both been guests on our show before, but some of our audience may not know you yet. So let's start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, what brought you to the SEI, and the work that you do here. So let's start that with Tim.
Yeah, so I've been here about 10, 15 years now. I actually started working for SSD, the group you work for still, really focusing on process improvement, software project management activities. The last 10 years or so, I've moved over to CERT. And there, I really started focusing more on software assurance and applying my background to how do I move good cyber engineering practices more to the left of the cycle, where traditional cyber stuff has been really operational focused. So that's really where I've been transitioned the last several years.
And Joe, what about you? What brought you here?
Oh, so many different things, I'd say. I guess the opportunity to work on many areas in software engineering. So I found myself a bit of a, what do you call it, a Swiss Army knife a little bit. And that skill set lends itself really well to the kind of work we do to software engineers too, which is, as you know, Sue, we get to work on a lot of different things. And we're always learning, love that environment. I think in this field, to continue to learn is what we have to do. And this, we get to do that here.
Yes, we do. And sometimes you and I get to do it together, which is even more fun. All right, so let's start before you tell us about the model, tell us about why you started building this platform independent model. And you have a recent blog post, and in that you talked about how many of the organizations in highly regulated environments, our DoD environments, banking, healthcare, they're facing a lot of challenges implementing DevSecOps. And so tell us a little bit about the challenges that the model is intended to solve. And Joe, why don't we start with you on that one?
I'll try. So, a lot of this was a little bit an idea kicked around. Tim is the primary lead on developing this model, but we quickly collaborated on the idea that we need kind of a source of truth on how to go about really understanding what DevSecOps means per organization.
Okay. And I know you say per organization because I think what I've read and what I've seen is one of the challenges is that it's not cookie cutter, right? DevSecOps is not a cookie cutter. You can't just say, oh, it worked over in this hospital. I can now put this approach into that bank. And so that is one of the challenges. Go, Tim.
And so that's a huge challenge, right? And the reason we built this platform independent model is that there's two extremes for DevSecOps. One is more the academic, the theoretical and principle what DevSecOps should be, and then you have the solutions, right? And there's lots of organizations who advertise or show their tool set or how they're doing DevSecOps, but every organization is different. Every business is different. And so how do you get beyond, what's that middle ground between those two extremes? That's really what fed us to this model.
So let's talk about the model. What is it? How did you build it? And how significant is it that it's platform independent? You just kind of started us on that, but let's continue a little more on that importance.
Right. So what is it? It's basically applying model-based systems engineering and enterprise architecture principles and concepts to DevSecOps, right? It's how do I capture and how do I articulate at that next level of abstraction from the academic piece to what does it mean to DevSecOps, right? DevSecOps really is a really complicated social, technical system, right? And so we need to apply good system engineering principles to it. And the difference between a platform-independent model and a platform-specific model is that we're not dictating solution. We're not saying you have to use this tool or that tool or the interactions. We're simply saying that a good DevSecOps, the ideal DevSecOps, have these elements in terms of activities, in terms of meeting certain requirements, in terms of certain types of resources, be person or software or equipment, and how do they all interact together? And it really forms that basis for someone to make an informed decision on what they need to do for themselves.
Okay. Joe, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Tim said it best. It is very challenging to, to not just throw a tool at a solution, to really understand what that capability is. So we talked about requirements. We also broke this down into capabilities.
Right.
We look at a typical infinity loop of DevSecOps, and what we realize that every step in that loop is another infinity loop. And even realizing that via a model is a huge benefit to actually understand that, hey, I have a team that's going to do, let's say, static analysis. It looks like a single step, but as you really look at it, you see there's planning, there's personnel that have to be involved, there's activities that it has to produce, inputs and outputs. And when we can apply a model-based system engineering approach to it, we really help organizations understand what it entails versus I have a solution that's going to do this for me.
Okay. So,
right. And then,
go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to go back to your original question is why the model, what's it bringing, is that it allows organizations, these highly regulated organizations that have very complicated systems, they have safety requirements, they have regulatory requirements, they have to think about how are they going to meet those regulations and how these tools are going to be configured and what are the right resources needed to do those things. And one of the major problems I think Joe and I both have seen is that they're not resourcing or understand the complexity of this half of the equation. They focus on just building the product, and they don't realize that infrastructure that enables the building of their product needs a lot more of their attention, right? And how do they articulate it? How do they plan that? The model should help inform that and help feed that planning process.
So what I'm hearing is two things. One is that this provides an explicit visualization of many of the factors that get ignored when people first say, we're going to do DevSecOps, right? They think of the tools, they think of the networks, but they don't think about all of these other things that come into play. And this other thing I'm hearing is that where DevSecOps is enacted essentially in the process of building a product, I want to build a healthcare system. What we're really talking about is with this model is guiding people on how to think about the ecosystem that product is going to be developed in and eventually sustained in. Did I get that right?
Very much.
You got it.
All right.
Yeah, not so much the product, but the supporting environment, people, processes, planning, and that's required.
Okay. So have you piloted this? And what kinds of things did you see that you were really happy about? And the other thing I know about modeling from some of my own background is when you go out and pilot a model, you go, oh, we said that. Oh, that's not a good idea. We need to, say that a different way. Have you had any of those kinds of experiences with the model yet?
So we've done a little bit. So one of the things we did is we have a whole set of requirements on going that next step beyond the DevSecOps principles. What does it mean to actually, what is a model, not a model, what should the system or the pipeline do, right? And so we use that as a basis for going out and doing some assessments of different organizations and say, hey, we think we're doing DevSecOps, how are we doing, right? And what I found very interesting is that, it mapped pretty well, right? And I was able to say, you're really good at X, you're missing Y. And the reason this other thing Z is so hard for you is because you're missing some of that fundamental constructs that enables that other thing to happen. And so it really helped frame it for them and give them an understanding of it, and material to visualize and understand what we were trying to communicate. Joe and I have done those types of assessments many, many times, and using the model as a base, I think just really helped improve the understanding and actually help them build a path to achieve what their ultimate goals are.
Right. And that's where this becomes organization specific. because you're going to want to make those recommendations are specific to the organization. They're not just a canned set of things that, the model spits out. It's not a machine learning model that says, oh, your name
Not there
is
yet.
Tim, so therefore you're going to want to know these things. So you're tailoring, you're using the model as a source, but you're tailoring it to the needs of that particular organization. So what are are there any interesting insights so far that, it's like, wow, every organization we talk to has this problem without fail. And, is that, to me, that those are places that inform SEI research opportunities, right? So are there anything like that that's come up?
I'll let you take that one, Joe.
All right. So I think the first thing we've recognized, this from our own work before the model, is we often, and this should, ring a bell with most of us, we've run into great heroics, right? These are individuals that are performing so many different duties. All right. And what we broke it down to, there are roles and responsibilities attached to capabilities and activities.
Right.
And as we did manual assessments, paper and pencil type of assessments, we found the same name listed as, technical point of contact for this activity, developer A is doing testing. Developer A is helping with infrastructure. These people get burned out. They're doing great work, no doubt. But it's not
sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
The model really helped us, right? This visualization of the activities we're performing and who's responsible, who interacts with the data, and who needs to either be informed by that data, or who needs to produce that data, or who uses that data.
Right.
These are all things that we can model very well. And these things really help us understand, wow, we need to hire. Or we got to do something different here. Maybe we can't do this activity. And this brings us into, we did use an idea of a little bit of a maturity level. In terms of, there are some really advanced things you could do with DevSecOps. The maturity level allows us to, hey, we can develop software without doing X, but we might not have that capability. But we want to know about, this may be more type advanced security analysis that we might want to do. And so we think, we can develop software without doing DevSecOps, right? It's
Sure.
been done. But we think you might be at a different level of maturity. And that helps an organization to understand that here's on our roadmap where we want to go. Here's where we're at today.
Have you run into, maturity levels have a history of being economic benchmarks in the past. Have you run into any resistance from organizations when you say maturity level, they go, no. Is that
certainly even from ourselves?
But I'm just, is that something that people seem to want, or is it something that is a convenience, but it doesn't really affect, their ability to use what we're offering? And the model is much richer than that.
Right. So the levels, like, the facial expression you're making, right? Joe and I really tried to resist it. But the problem is that every organization is different, and DevSecOps is this really complicated thing. And it's really overwhelming to someone new to DevSecOps, or someone who's hasn't really matured their pipelines yet. And so where do you start, right? And so we had to make a choice: is do we model the ideal, or do we model the least common denominator, right? And least common denominator is I'm building software without tools, right? The traditional waterfall type of approach. So we found that the levels probably was the only way to go about it. And that level one is the minimal core competencies one would do, just develop software. And then you build into, hey, you got lots of automation, and you got like maybe even some machine learning going on at the really high maturity thoughts of it. But it's not designed to meet a benchmark. It's not designed. It's really helping you to know where to focus in our 10 core capabilities that we've identified as part of the model. And so it was really just, so how do I not get so overwhelmed by the complexity of it all?
Well, the attraction of those kinds of ideas was always this sort of apparent simplicity with a lot of underneath the covers complexity. And so, I'm not surprised that there's attraction to that concept. But
we'd hate to ever see it turn into a requirement of meeting a level for regulation. But we think it's great to shoot for, hey, can we use advanced machine learning and artificial intelligence to monitor our solutions and reconfigure our environment? This is possible today, but it is very advanced.
It's state of the art versus state of the practice. Yeah. So, all right. So any other information about the model or using the model, if someone were to come to you and say, hey, I want to use this model to help improve my own DevSecOps, any other information about the model that you would want people to have?
So one, it's freely available. It's public on the SEI's GitHub site. There's a link off the main SEI website. And so it's an interactive model. It's not traditional where it's just read this Word document or read this published, book or whatever. It really is interactive, right? We try to use modern model-based system engineering to allow you to click here and really dig down. And then you get lost, and then you want to come back to the top and dig back down. But it's supposed to be interactive. And the power of that is, all the concepts, all the interactions, it's stated once and referenced where it makes sense, right? And that's the power of models. And so it is definitely different than a lot of the other stuff out there. And it's free, right? It's interactive. It's HTML interactive model. If someone wants, the core stuff, they can reach out to the SEI. We maybe make arrangements to do that.
What about your goals for transitioning this into practice? So you've made it freely available. That's one of the ways that we enable transition. But what about, do you have other plans for like training people on how to use this? Do you have other job aids and things? I know you've got an assessment method that people can, ask you to perform. What are some of the other transition things you're either working on or planning to work on for this model?
Right. So a good bit of it currently is we're still developing it. And so the current release is the first iteration of it. We're doing some activities to expand just the current definitions that are in there. The other aspect of is one of the original reasons we even started going down this path is from a cyber assurance perspective, how do I assure the pipeline?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's been several, SolarWinds being an example where someone attacked the pipeline to get to the product. Right. And so how do I begin reasoning through that? And so we are starting about that aspect of it. And we're thinking about, what are some of the threat scenarios one has to worry about for the model? And then how do we capture that and put that in the model as well?
Right.
And so we're still growing and we're still building the model. In terms of use cases of it, we're definitely for people who want to pilot, who want to try to use it. We do have a few other blogs and other publications coming out to start explaining the models and stuff. Like I'm hoping to eventually draft a blog with you to talk about the levels and the appraisal stuff. I know you shared some material with me. Just haven't gotten there yet. And so that's kind of where I think we're at. Joe, you have something you want to add?
We're exploring a space. We're looking for collaborators that are interested in this approach. We believe it's the right approach to, versus a sea of documents that describes processes.
Right.
This is a really easy to understand approach of here's these activities we're doing. I believe you could offshoot this lots of ways. I think organizations might say, we're going to show how you train these certain activities, right? Mm-hmm. I think it could go a lot of directions.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's up to us, or I think that's up to the community to say, here's how we'd like to use this.
So there is a concept of reference architectures in various parts of the DoD, and I imagine in other domains as well. Is one of the, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but is one of the possible uses of this to create a version of the model that essentially expresses a reference architecture, but where the reference architecture documents typically don't talk about any of the activities or processes. You could actually have a reference architecture that included some, and here's the required resources for this, and here's the kind of competencies those resources need to have. Is that something that someone could do with this model that has time? Which I'm sure you guys know.
So that's exactly what a platform-independent model is. It's a reference architecture at a high level. And what you would do is you build that platform-specific model, right? And that platform-specific model would be that program or that company's specific instantiation, but they could actually reference the independent model and show how they have met the requirements or the activities or the intent of the PIM in their platform-specific model. Or if they choose not to, they can rationalize why they consciously chose not to do something, right? Which is okay as well.
Sure. Yeah, we do allow people to do things differently from one program to another, and that's always going to be the case. So you talked about you're both working on expanding this model and also starting to build some transition mechanisms for it. But what is next what are the areas of interest for you two in terms of your research in this area?
I'll speak to that. I would like the rest of some of our experts in the SEI to incorporate their expertise into this model. Me and Tim quite often talk about software engineering processes. They're not different for any of our organization, but we do have we got expertise in malware, we got expertise in insider threats. We are collaborating with those groups, but we'd like to see a little bit more collaboration even amongst our own experts and how to represent their expertise in the model.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, like we've just scratched the surface on metrics, for example. We have places where you collect data, but what are really good DevSecOps metrics, right? It really is
that's an emerging field.
Right. It's really a weak area of defined material. That's actually really good metrics to answer really good questions from a DevSecOps pipeline perspective. There's some stuff out there, but definitely room for growth and research there. Mm-hmm. And we have folks who are really focused on that. Right. So how do I get that knowledge into the model to begin expanding the reference material?
Okay. So Joe, Tim, if people want to work with you to use the model, either in appraisal or other context, how do they get a hold of you and make that happen?
An easy way is just to email us at info@sei.cmu.edu. Those messages will get to Tim and I, and we'll get back to you.
All right. I want to thank you for joining us. This is exciting stuff to have something new like this at the very beginning of its use. So I appreciate you sharing this with all of our viewers. And I can see where there's going to be a lot more activity in this area. So dealing with all the operational aspects of this is what you have ahead of you. Congratulations. So I want to make sure our viewers know that we will include links to the GitHub and other resources that we've talked about in our transcript, so they will have that. And I also want to remind our viewers that you can find this podcast wherever you find your podcasts. We are everywhere. My favorite is, of course, the SEI YouTube channel, but you will have your own favorites. So I want to thank you, Joe and Tim, and thank all of our viewers for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Suze.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. This episode is available where you download podcasts, including SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. It is also available on the SEI website at sei.cmu.edu/podcasts and the SEI's YouTube channel. This copyrighted work is made available through the Software Engineering Institute, a federally funded research and development center sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense. For more information about the SEI and this work, please visit www.sei.cmu.edu. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us at info@sei.cmu.edu. Thank you.